As many of you know, I am kind of the final boss of the acoustic bass haters club. I've made several videos at this point on how I feel about them, and suffice to say, they're just not for me. That said, I have gotten lots of comments from you guys about U-basses, and so today, we're gonna check one out. This is a bass I'm borrowing from a friend of mine, so this video isn't sponsored or anything, though I did try to hit up Kala, and they just ignored me, so their loss. This bass is an Acklot AKBU30. If you've never heard of this brand, that's okay, because I hadn't either. It seems to be just another Chinese brand in the vein of Glary, or Donner, or Joyo, or Colleen. Anyway, nothing special about the brand, it's just cheap knockoff stuff. But this one appears to be pretty decent. In addition to some pretty attractive woods, it seems to play and sound pretty okay. You also get a very decent gig bag with it, but it's not without its quirks. The biggest hangup that people are going to literally have on this bass is the strings. Their product page calls these Aquila, but it's similar to like silicone or rubber in its texture, and as your hands start to get sweaty or develop moisture, they're gonna stick to the strings. You can use baby powder to get around that issue, and where this thing is fretless, that'll help you slide around the neck quite a lot easier. By the way, this thing being fretless is actually a huge benefit because this style of bridge doesn't allow you to do intonation very well, so you can just kind of fix your intonation with your ear and your technique. Not saying it's easier than I'm good at it, but it is possible. Jake, the owner of this bass, says he also wants to try some different strings on it, so if you'd like to see a part 2 with the other strings, just let me know in that comment section. Acoustically, this bass is just loud enough for you to hear yourself, and that's about it. Like, it has even less volume than a standard acoustic bass, which is to say almost none at all. But it does have a little preamp that runs on cell batteries, so we can plug it in. Up top here, we've got our controls, which is a simple 3-band EQ, a volume knob, and a tuner that mutes the output when you engage it. Boop! And by the way, tuning this thing is kind of weird, because the strings tend to stick in this nut slot, so you'll turn things and then you'll have to like reseat the string and make sure that the tension is the same on both sides. It's kind of a whole thing. Here's what it sounds like flat. And let's boost the bass all the way, get it a little more beefy. Let's take the treble out of there and get rid of some of that string noise. And then let's sweep the mids. Let's mids all the way up. And then we'll cut the mids all the way. So we've got some decent EQ controls and we can get some passable sounds out of it, but do you think it sounds like an upright? Kinda? Like maybe if we palm mute? Maybe. I feel like the direct tone on this just isn't amazing. Like, it's really not blowing my skirt up or anything. Like, either the pickup or the preamp just aren't quite doing it. I don't know. This might be a contender for your couch bass, but I think that I would probably never pick this up except to just noodle around on. So here's a question you might be curious about. Can this be a good practice tool? It has the benefit of being really small and portable. You can hear yourself without having to have an amp. So let's test it out. I just got a big playlist of music for a wedding band that I'm going to be working with, and this seems like a good opportunity to see if time spent on this bass translates to progress on a real bass. Like, I'm sure it will to some extent, because practice is practice, but here's the thing. I need to make videos and I need to practice, so I'm just trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, alright? Okay, so I've spent a fair amount of time practicing with this, like here at my desk and over on the couch. I'm peeking my microphone, and I can pretty confidently say that I feel kinda the same. This is a fun little toy, but it doesn't have a whole lot of practical use. Maybe it's just how cheap this particular one is, but it just doesn't quite sound right. Keep having to like tap on it everywhere to try and get rid of all the weird like artifacts, and the sound kind of cuts in and out sometimes. Or sometimes you'll just get uneven response across the strings. It just is exactly what the price point would suggest. It's a cheap bass. Something else I'm having to continually remind myself is that the way that I view and use gear is going to be different than how most of the people watching this video view and use gear. Like, I am a professional working bass player. I do gigs, I do recording sessions, I make videos for this YouTube channel, and that is just not going to be the same kind of experience that most people have. And that said, I'm just having a really hard time fitting this into what I want to do musically. There's just doesn't seem to be a place for it. As a practice tool, I do think my time on this helped, but I think I would rather spend that time on a bass that's closer to what I'm going to actually perform on, if not the bass I'm going to perform on. The dramatically smaller scale length makes it a very different kind of experience when you switch back to a normal bass, and unless this was the only option, I would not actively choose this for practice. It is just loud enough for you to be able to hear yourself acoustically, and you can like play music from your phone or whatever and practice along to that, and that's fine. But just remember, you will immediately get drowned out by literally any other acoustic instrument. My girlfriend so many times has remarked when I've been playing this that it is less loud than even just me talking normally, like comfortably, like down here. If after all of this you still think you might want a U-bass, here's what I would say. Get a slightly nicer version of this, but do get it fretless. Having it fretless means that you can mitigate all the problems that come from this kind of a bridge, and plus fretless is just fun to play. Got hair in my mouth. Tuning continues to be an annoyance just because of how the strings are, and maybe it's partially these tuning machines aren't great. I think tuning is just really annoying on these things. But again, that might be less of an issue on a nicer model, as will the sound, because I'm still just kind of disappointed by the tone on this thing, and it just doesn't quite get there. I do think that the tone of these basses has a lot of potential. It's really tubby and fat and unique, and I think if you were to run it through a bunch of effects, you could get some really interesting stuff. You don't often see these kinds of basses outside of like folk and bluegrass and Americana, but if you stuck a bunch of pedals on it, I think that could actually be really interesting. So is this finally the end of the acoustic bass nonsense around here? That is entirely up to you guys. AMP out. Yeah, let's play YYZ on this thing here, huh?